Welcome dear students, good morning once again. I hope you will be enjoying your studies through these online classes. This time we are going to continue with class 7 history, the Delhi Sultans. When I go through the question answers, I felt that there are some questions which are really needed to be discussed so that there should not be any confusion or there should not be any doubts in your mind. Okay, so I thought that some of the questions are really needed to be discussed. That's why right now in this section, in this class, I'm going to discuss some of the question answers. Okay, so let's begin with chapter 3, the Delhi Sultans. Question answer revision part, you can say history. The first question of your textbook is, which ruler first established his or her capital at Delhi? That means you have to name the ruler who first established his or her capital at Delhi. Mind you, while giving the notes, I have told you to note down page number 31. Right? I have taken out a page also and I have pasted it over there, and I have told you to note down the first ruler and the last ruler. First ruler is Anangpal. He belongs to Tomar Rajputs. That means his kingdom was Tomar Rajputs. And the last one was from the Lodi dynasty, Bahlol Lodi. I have remembered. Okay. So if you keep on revising those things, you remember the things. So which ruler first established his or her capital at Delhi? In that page only at the top it was given Anangpal from the Tomar Rajputs. So he belonged to Tomar Rajputs and the name of the king was Anangpal. So he was Anangpal who first established his capital at Delhi. Another question, which was also an easy question, I have already discussed. What was the language of administration under the Delhi Sultan? So I have told you about the Tuareg, right? Tuareg was the language written in Persian, right? So it is the language of administration under the Delhi Sultans, Tuareg, written in Persian, or else you can write Persian also. It is also a language, no problem, no issues. Okay, or else you can write only Tuareg, or you can write in this fashion as I have written Tuareg. If you elaborate it in the form of giving the brackets Persian, it will be far better. Okay, so I think there would not be any problem with these two questions, right? When moving on to the third question, in whose reign or during the rule of which king did the Sultanate reach its farthest extent? The word farthest extent means becomes more powerful, get elaborated, get extended, right? So in the reign of Muhammad Tughlaq. So you should remember the name of this king also, because he was very powerful when he has ruled. Okay, so it was during the rule of Muhammad Tughlaq, during the reign of which, during the kingdomship of which, Delhi Sultanate reached its farthest extent, or it became very powerful. Clear? These are small questions, brief questions. Let's have a warm up with you. Given such small questions, the book has also these questions. Now, the fourth question is, from which country did Ibn Battuta travel to India? Ibn Battuta, mind you, was a traveler. As Farhain from China, he was also a traveler, right? And many other travelers used to come to India to visit the India. They have written good things over India. They have written the history of India also. Okay, so time and again, it's a great pride for us, or you can say it's a matter of great delight that many travelers from across the world came to our country and have written something over our country. Okay, so the question is, from which country this Ibn Battuta belonged to, or from which country he came to India? It was Morocco. So Ibn Battuta came to our country from Morocco. Now the fifth question, an important question which you are going to see over here. It's really a question to discuss, because you have to understand this term circle of justice. I have clarified it by writing it in simple terms. You can also make your own answer, not to worry, but you have to understand this thing. According to the circle of justice, as per So military commanders are taking care of large pieces of land. Okay, those lands are iktas, and the holders of the land, these were the holders of the land known as iktadar or mukti, right? So military commanders, why these military commanders keep the interest of peasantry in mind? This is the question. But if you understand the term circle of justice, you got to explain the things. It was important. Why? Because a king cannot survive without soldiers. See, the circle of justice has been defined. If you understand the circle of justice, the answer will come inside this part only. Okay. What is circle of justice is, king cannot survive without soldiers. He needs soldiers in order to rule, in order to administer over a part. Kings need soldiers. They cannot survive without soldiers. If I am going to talk about soldiers, soldiers cannot live without salaries, right? Soldiers need the salary. That's why they are soldiers. They are working under the king as soldiers, isn't it? Salaries come from revenue, that means tax collected from peasants. Clear? King cannot live without soldiers. Soldier cannot live without salaries. Salary will come through the revenue collected through peasants. And peasant can pay the revenue only when they were happy and prosperous. Right? When they will be happy, when peasants will be happy, then only they will pay the tax or the revenue. They will be able to produce the revenue. And when they will be happy, when king promotes justice to them. That means they will be happy and prosperous only when king promotes justice and honest governance. Or you can say, if they provide justice and honesty to the peasants or the farmers, right? I think this part will be clear. So if the question will be asked, what do you mean by the term circle of justice, or as per according to it, why the interest of peasant will be kept in mind? Their interest will be kept in mind so that they can pay the revenue, right? And why it is important? Just because king cannot live without soldiers. Soldiers cannot live without salaries. Salaries will be coming when the peasants are going to produce the revenue. And when they are going to produce the revenue? Just when the king promotes justice and honest governance. Isn't it? Simple words, brief, accurate, to the point answer. I have described the same thing over here also in such a fashion, so that by means of a diagrammatic example or by means of diagrammatic scheme also you can understand. This is the circle of justice which keeps on moving, right? King cannot live without soldiers. Soldiers cannot survive or cannot live without salaries. Salaries will be produced from revenue of the patient. That means those patients, when they are going to produce the revenue, when they are going to give the revenue, then only their salaries will come. And when this will be generated, when king promotes honest governance and provides them happiness. If the king provides the patient happiness, then only everything will be achieved, otherwise nothing will be achieved. Clear? I think circle of justice everybody have understood. If you still have some problem regarding circle of justice, you can ask in the comment box, no problem. But as far as myself is concerned, I am very much satisfied that I have made you to understand circle of justice very well from my side. Okay, time and again look into this diagrammatic scheme as well as the answer, circle of justice, mind you. Very important question it is. Now, another question is, what do you mean by the internal and external frontiers of the Sultanate? You have to define internal frontiers internal and external frontiers. Internal frontier include your hinterlands of the garrison town. Hinterland of the garrison town, first thing, right? Hinterland of the garrison town. What is the meaning of hinterland? Those adjacent lands, those lands which are besides a city or a port that provide them with goods and services, isn't it? Yes. So internal frontiers include these lands, hinterland of the garrison town. And what is garrison town? The fortified settlement of soldiers. Yes, where soldiers reside, where soldiers will be in full, where soldiers are given the accommodation and foods and all those things, right? So internal frontiers include hinterland of the garrison town, number one, and Ganga Yamuna Dome. Dome means nothing, area. The area nearby to Ganga Yamuna, which is near to Delhi, right? Those areas which are near to Delhi, which are nearer to Delhi, are known as internal frontiers. That means Ganga Yamuna area or Ganga Yamuna Dome and the hinterlands of the garrison town. Clear? These are internal frontiers. Now if I am going to talk about the external frontiers, which are far away from Delhi, those areas which are far away from Delhi, and unconquered areas. Unconquered areas means which the king has not conquered, which the king has not won, which were not victorious to the king, right? Those areas are known as external frontiers. Clear? Internal frontiers, hinterland of the garrison town and Ganga Yamuna area, and external frontiers include unconquered areas like southern India. If you go down to the map, that means your Chennai area, your Maharashtra area, your Bangalore areas, Karnataka areas, okay, those areas. So external frontiers include unconquered areas of the southern India and which is away from Delhi. Those areas which are away from Delhi, which are unconquered areas, which are unconquered areas of the southern India, those areas are external frontiers. Very simple. First you concentrate upon internal frontiers, then you concentrate upon external frontiers. I don't think there will be any problem with anyone, right? Now, what were the steps taken to ensure that Muktis performed their duties? What are the steps taken? Those steps you have to define to ensure, to make a guarantee to establish that Muktis were performing their duties. To make the Muktis to work, who were Muktis? Iqtadar or the landholders, right? Military commanders who were given the charge of taking care of the land by the kings, right? Those were Muktis, right? Remember? Yes. So what were the steps taken, what were the methods applied to make the Muktis to perform their duty or their work so that they can work? And another question is, why do you think they may have wanted to defy the orders of Sultan? Why they were defying the orders of Sultan? That means why they were not, sometimes did not refuse to go with the orders of Sultan. That means they refuse, they deny the orders of Sultan. This is the question. Okay? Refuse or deny the orders. Okay? The answer is very simple. First you concentrate upon the first part. What were the steps taken to ensure that Muktis performed their duties? The duty. First of all, I have defined the duty of the Muktis. Time and again I am telling you this thing. What was the duty of the Muktis? The duty of the Muktis was to lead military campaigns, right? And maintain law and order in Iqta. Iqta is nothing, piece of land, large pieces of land or pieces of land are Iqtas. To maintain the law and order in Iqtas and to lead the military campaign. These are the two major duties of Iqtas, right? What were the duties of Muktis? To maintain law and order in Iqtas, to maintain law and order and to lead military campaign. If there will be any war or something like that, they will lead the military. Clear? Okay. These are the duties of muktis. Now, what were the steps taken to ensure that muktis are working? They were assigned iktas. They were given iktas, piece of land for short period of time. Right? They were given the iktas, or they were given the land for shorter period of time, so that if they will be given land permanently, they might become king one day. They might revolt against the king itself, because military power were also under them, because they lead the campaign. Okay, moreover the land is also with them. If the land will be given permanently to them, they might revolt against the king. They will take up everything. So these lands or these iktas were assigned to them, but temporarily, not permanently, and they were assigned iktas for shorter period of time. Later, in the coming days or after that, they were shifted. So they were kept on shifting. Iktas were made to get shifted from one land to another. They were not provided permanent lands. They will be governing over a land for shorter period of time. Understood the policy? Yes, this was the policy by the kings, that they were given the iktas, they were assigned the duties of iktas, but shorter period of time. In the coming days or later on, after that, after some time, they were shifted from one ikta to another ikta. Now, another point was accountants were appointed. See, accountants were also there by the state. Accountants were appointed by whom? By the state, to check the amount of revenue collected. How much revenue has been collected by the iktadas, by the muktis? There were accountants to take care of these things. Otherwise, they may do a forgery, they may do a scam. If the collection will be 500 dinars, they may give 200 dinars to the king. Only this much has been collected, right? So they may do a scam. That's why, in order to prevent these circumstances, these conditions, accountants were appointed by the state to check the amount of revenue collected. How much revenue has been collected by the muktis? In order to check that, accountants were appointed by the state. Okay? Now, the third thing was, care was taken that mukti collect only the taxes prescribed by state, right? And he keep the required number of soldiers. So it was also taken care that mukti will collect only those taxes, can collect the taxes that were prescribed by the state. They can't do as per according to their will. Okay, there was nothing in the will. Whatever the tax is needed to be submitted, that was prescribed by state, by their district, by their land. Okay, and as per according to that only, that tax will be collected. And he keep the required number of soldiers. That means, if 200 soldiers are required, then only that much soldiers will be taken care of, or is being kept by muktis, right? It's nothing like they can take 300 soldiers, otherwise it will be an unusual expense, right? So in order to avoid that unusual expense, they will keep a check, they will take care that only the required number of soldiers should be kept in the army. Clear? I don't think there will be any problem with any of these stuff. These are very simple answers, that means written in simple form and in easy way. Okay, so accountants were appointed to check the revenue. They were assigned the iktas for shorter period of time, and muktis were taking care. That means it was also being seen that they should only keep the required number of soldiers. Moreover, the taxes they will collect will be as per the taxes prescribed by state. Okay, so these are the things which are really being taken care of, so that muktis perform their duties. Another part, why do you think they may have wanted to defy the order? Why they sometimes deny the order they deny the order of the sultan just because of their harsh living condition, or harsh means very hard living condition. Okay, they may have wanted to defy the order of sultan as they were maintaining their own armies and collecting revenues which may provoke them to rebel against kingdom. If they were taking care of maintaining their own armies, they have two works: to maintain their army also and to collect the tax. So there might be a chance that while collecting the taxes you have to be harsh, and once you will be harsh you may rebel or you may revolt against the kingdom, or you may revolt against the king also. There might be a chance. So they might be defying, they are denying the order of sultan sometimes because they were maintaining their own armies, and the collecting of revenues, these kinds of work provoke them, force them, okay, force them to rebel against the kingdom. These kinds of work force them to rebel against kingdom. Moreover, also harsh condition of service, because they were doing the work days and nights. Because of this harsh condition of the service, there is a reason of defying the order of sultan. Sometimes they don't listen to the sultans, sometimes they don't listen to the sultans also. Right? This was the reason. If the question will be asked why they were defying, because of harsh condition of service. Moreover, they will have the duties of maintaining their own armies and collecting revenue, which force them, which provoke them to revolt against their kingdom. Okay, this is the answer of this question. Now another question is, what was the impact of Mongol invasion on Delhi Sultanate? When these Mongols were invading or time and again challenging the Delhi Sultanate, what was the change that took place? There were many changes. Impact, the result, the consequence, the effect of the Mongol invasion on the Delhi Sultanate were: number one, the rulers of Delhi Sultanate raised a large standing army. These Delhi Sultanate start keeping large standing armies. Earlier, because no other king or nobody is invading Delhi, nobody is attacking Delhi, so they were quite peaceful, they keep small armies. But once the Mongol invaded and once the Mongol continue on with the attacks, they start keeping large armies. Clear? Now, Alauddin, who was also a king, okay, of the Delhi Sultanate, Alauddin constructed a new garrison town. See, this king has constructed a new garrison town named Siri. The name of the garrison town was Siri. Garrison town, settlement, fortified settlement with soldiers, that means soldiers stationary place, right? So Alauddin constructed a new garrison town named Siri for his soldiers. At the same time, while Muhammad Tughlaq emptied residence, he has emptied his residence, he has emptied his palace and garrisoned there. Okay, he also started garrisoning over there. He has also stayed with his soldiers. That means these are the large changes. This was the effect. First thing was they start keeping larger armies. They start keeping larger armies so that they can protect themselves from Mongol invasion, from Mongol attack. Now another reason is another impact, result, consequence, effect was Alauddin constructed a large garrison town which was named as Siri, and Muhammad Tughlaq in fact emptied his residence also. He was also another ruler who was very powerful. Muhammad Tughlaq emptied residence and garrisoned there, right? He also started staying with the soldiers, started garrisoned in his resident and make the resident to place for the soldiers also, to feed the large number of soldiers. In order to, now because they were started keeping large standing army, so in order to feed means to provide food to large number of soldiers, harsh taxes were imposed on patients. Now the pressure comes on peasants also. Peasant has to give large amount of revenue, large amount of tax, because large amount, they have to produce large crops, large number of crops, large huge quantity of crops, I can say. Okay, so there was obviously a pressure on the soldiers, these peasants also, farmers, because they need to feed these soldiers, large number of soldiers. If the soldiers will be in limited quantity, peasants have to produce in limited quantity. But if there will be large number of soldiers, they need to produce more and more food. Simple logic. So to feed the large number of armies, harsh taxes were imposed on peasants. Clear? Moreover, they started paying their soldiers in cash rather than iktas. Earlier, before the Mongol attack, okay, before the Mongol attack, these soldiers were paid in the form of iktas. Okay, this soldier is needed to be given the salary, you take that land, you take that much land, like that only. But when the Mongols started attacking, okay, the soldiers were started paying in cash rather than land, rather than iktas. Clear? So these measures pose huge administrative challenge. They pose huge administrative challenge, as well as these are the changes which were being brought about in the administrative part. I don't think there will be any problem with these questions. Now later on, the rest of the questions will be explained later on, if the time permits us, because we have some time left. Let's continue on with the homework part, and your homework will be write and learn the question answer of the chapter, the Delhi Sultan. Mind you, if I am giving you the homework to learn the question answers, then only you will learn. It's not necessary. You should learn the question answers of every chapter being given here. If you have any problems in understanding the things, you can write it in comment box and you can ask, no problem. But whatever the things I am concentrating upon, whatever the things I am explaining, you go through it time and again. Okay? So till our next meeting, till our next online classes, take very good care of your health. Stay with your family. Well, have a nice day. Have a wonderful day and keep learning. Thank you.